Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be talking about graphical user interfaces or GUIs and how to make them using Python. First let's open it. Python. Okay. So a GUI or a graphical user interface is basically an app that combines images, text or any other sorts of media to create a set of controls that a user can use. For example, a file manager combines text to create file and folder names, and then images to identify their icons, and then a bunch of other controls that I can use. That way I can create an app, in this case the file manager app. So to do this in Python, we first need takeInter. Now I must warn you, if you're using Mac OS X 10.9, also known as Mavericks for some reason, this step will actually fail. I'll post instructions on how to fix that error in the description. So assuming that you already have fixed the error or you don't even have a Mac, we first call from takeInter import star. You can also use just directly import takeInter, but because we'll be using its classes very often, we don't want to include that takeInter dot before the class, so it's just better to call it like this. Let's save the file. I want to use it. I have it. Next we need to create a class. This class will be the frame that will store all our widgets, and by widgets I mean buttons, other frames and so on. So we use class and then enter your name of your class. It should not be the same as just frame because there's a class from takeInter also called frame. So instead I'll just call it demo_frame. Inside the brackets I want to keep frame, F capital. That means you're getting the frame class from takeInter. We need this because we're going to turn the class into a frame that when called we can just simply create an app. So what's the next step? The next step is to create a constructor. To do that we just use define __ init __ and inside the brackets self obviously and master. Master will be like the window manager that will manage the frame, in this case TK, as in like capital T and small k. Next what do? We need to call the frame initialization method from the frame class so that we can get an actual frame. So frame dot __ init __ and then the brackets self master, and that's it. Next there is one more thing we have to call before we can continue, and that is self.grid. This function will enable us to add the widgets, the buttons and all, in a specific order, as in by row, column, and then how many columns should it take. Next we call self.hw button and set that to equal a button. It's a class from takeInter. So there are several inputs you can keep to button, but for now I'll just keep the most necessary ones. So self, of course, and then text, the label of the button, which I'll set as click me, and then the command attribute, which equals a function self dot respond to click. So these inputs, as you can see, are different from what we used to put in a function. Usually you just pass what we're going to pass, but here we seem to be defining a variable. Actually, we're taking an input and redefining it to itself. Yes, this can actually happen. We can do this if you want to set default values. In this case, the default values for self.hw button will be the text equal to click me and the command equal to that function. Next we need to set its position. So self.hw button dot grid, and inside the brackets of it the row we'll set to 0 and the column I'll also set to 0. There's also another property called column span, that is how many columns can this widget take at a time, but I'll leave that for now because I'll only have 2 widgets in this example. Now I'll create another widget called self.hw label. That equals label, not surprising, of self comma text equal to, I'll just set it to blank, comma, and actually for now that is it, that's all you require. Next you have to set its position. So self.hw label dot grid, inside that row equals to 1, column equals to 0. That means the button and the label are in the same column but on different rows. Next we need to create that method we bind it to the button, right? What was that called? Self.respond to click. So we need to define respond to click. Inside we have to keep self, of course. Now that we don't have to put the event parameter as we had to do with the turtles example, because this is a button, it will already know what to do with the function. But of course we don't keep round brackets when we are setting up the command. So inside I will just make the label display some text. So self.hw label, instead of saying .text or something like that, we have to put a square bracket, and inside the square bracket we have to put text in brackets, in the quotes of course, and set that equal to whatever you want to keep. Hello world exclamation point. Oh, I messed up there. Oh. Okay, so we have defined our class. Now what? Now we have 2 options here, either to create a driver function that can create a class for you, or just create the class directly. So for now this is only a simple frame, so I'll just keep it as directly. So root equals to tk, this was what I said earlier. Then hwf equals to demo frame, and inside that you keep root as the parameter for master, and then you keep hwf.main loop. This is the same as in the turtle concept. In fact, whenever you're creating a new window, you have to keep this main loop method. Now let's run it. There we go. We created our first GUI application. Now you may notice that it is really small. I mean, it does work, but it's so small that even one of the minimize icon is off the app, but you can always resize it. And also you saw that I clicked earlier and it showed the text hello world. I'll do that again. You saw that? Now notice that the button originally was right here at the edge of the app. However, when I clicked and the text came, it immediately did that. That was because that label was bigger than the button. So the button either had to resize or just had to realign. Well, it can only realign for now, so it just did that. Now, of course, I can always set it to put something else. So if I click, and it shows. Now, of course, it just doesn't have the grid function just doesn't have to depend on the previous widgets. You can keep it wherever you want. Maybe putting to column 2 will fix it. There we go. You see that? Also note, if you don't want the size to change, I mean even when it does, if you don't want it to change positions, you can just use column span equal to whatever number you want. I'll set 2 in this case. So that's how you create your first GUI application using Python. Oh, and note that if you're using a Mac and you fail to do this step, the import step, it gives like it can't import this. Note that one version of Mac OS 10.9 actually has a bug that doesn't work. That doesn't take into work. So I'll post instructions on how to fix that in the description. So thank you for watching this video and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.